Corey from Munro Associates has torn down over 100 vehicles, and now he's sharing what he thinks Tesla's unique advantages are compared to all of these other vehicles. Herbert from Brighter with Herbert did a phenomenal job doing this interview. A big shout out to Herbert.
Whenever you see another OEM and they open the hood, or you see a design, like maybe an example of what it looks like, and you see orange lines running everywhere, and they almost show it like, oh, look at our EV, orange lines. If you see 1 inch of orange line, it highlights inefficiency. The best EVs should have as little amount of orange high voltage wire exposed. The more you have, the more inefficient your system. So a Tesla has orange line running from the charge port to the battery, and from the battery to the rear motor, and if it has a front motor, from the battery to the front motor, and then it has a small line running to the high voltage AC compressor for the heat pump system. So it's a very small amount.
Imagine a meeting. All right, boys, we have a Tesla here. See that orange cable right here? Yep. This is what we are gonna do here as well. Obviously, Tesla is leading right now. There's no reason to reinvent the, wheels. We already have them. We're not gonna be like Toyota, which tried to reinvent the wheels and then they just kept falling off. And the cable is there already. So right now, we're just gonna copy everything, including where the cable is, because, that way we save money. And then once we are done, then we think about how do we improve. And because Tesla is leading, they probably put that cable there for a reason like that. So yeah, we're just gonna copy and not think about it. But then you develop a car and you get this, whatever this is, or this, or this. This is from a Chevy Bolt, the one that catches on fire. I am not an engineer, but this is so obviously stupid. There's no good excuse for that. I mean, no wonder that the Chevy Bolt was recalled for seatbelt fire risk. The engineering ability of Chevy is indeed impressive. They have done something that I don't know if anyone else has ever done before. Has anyone done that before? Actually, yes. GM has done it before. GM owns Chevy, by the way. So yeah, that's some impressive engineering there. And now Corey explains another Tesla advantage, but he picks a very simple and easy to understand example.
The badging on the outside of the car. So traditional OEMs will sell vehicles in 4 to 8 trim levels.
Right.
Think of Chevy, for example. You can buy a Chevy Tahoe LT. You can buy a Chevy Tahoe LTZ. You can buy a Chevy Tahoe High Country. You can buy a Chevy Tahoe RST. You can buy a Chevy whatever Texas Edition. Each one of these trim levels, they have small different variations in the exterior cladding, whether that's door sills, front fascia, wheel and tire package, mirror color versus mirror non-color. They vary the trim around the windows. Some are chrome, some are black, some are satin steel. You get different roof racks. The rear of the vehicle may have a different rear fascia. Some have quad tips for the exhaust. Others have a single. Now, it's painful for me to walk through all of those things.
It was also painful just listening to that. You know what's really amazing about Tesla also? You just go to the website, you click on custom order, and boom, you got your vehicle. You choose one of the 2 options here, and then you just pick the color, the wheels, then the interior color, and you're basically done. Whereas, for example, with all other automakers almost, you have to go through multiple pages. You have to click into the page. When a new page opens, then you have to click on another thing. When another page opens, it just feels like it's not easy to do. And it doesn't load immediately. With Tesla, you just click on a color and boom, it changes. It is just clunky. Like, I don't want to click on this button because it's going to take me to the next page. And it loads. And when it loads, it's like this. It's not smooth loading. It's just something that, it's a small thing, but it's something that compared to Tesla, This sucks.
And I know this because I actually drive a GM SUV. And I have a Denali version, which is different than the non-Denali, which is different than the AT4. So me just walking through the different trims of an American SUV means that each one of those has a designer and a design and release engineer, which means instead of making 250,000 fascias for GM's large SUV, they're actually making 50, 30, or 40,000 of each. Because not only do you have the GMC model, you have the Escalade, and then you have the Chevy. So it's the same vehicle built in Texas, but you may actually have 15 or 17 different front fascias that will go on a large SUV rolling out of the Fort Worth factory. Think of that line side complexity. So when you have that person down there, I'm putting the trim on. What is this? Oh, it's an Escalade. It's got the super chrome. What is this? Oh, this is an LT Tahoe. The reason I'm bringing this up, describe how that conversation happens at Tesla. It doesn't happen. It's conversations that don't happen because there is only one Model 3 window trim color now. It's not chrome. They changed it in 2020. Do you remember the old ones were chrome and now they're
I did not get the chrome.
Black.
The best part is no part. The best conversation is no conversation, especially if you are an introvert and especially if you are an introvert and an engineer. And this is where we come to Morgan Stanley. They did a deep dive into why other manufacturers are not using gigacastings. And one of the reasons is they simply do not make enough vehicles, they think. They do not want to abandon their existing tooling that is already obsolete. But somehow makes sense. I'm not sure how, but somehow it makes sense. I mean, if they actually made the switch, they would save money, even if they write that off as a loss. But here's the thing. If they wrote that off as a loss, I mean, all the equipment that they purchased before, then that means all of the managers, all of the executives that get compensated based on performance, meaning profits, for example, now do not get paid because, well, there's a loss. The company had a loss. We had to write off all this expensive equipment. And that is one reason why these old structures, they have to crumble to be restructured. Some of these companies are going to go bankrupt.
There's a lot of great engineers that waste a lot of time designing a part that should not exist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some OEMs have built their business model off of offering a low trim level for 45 grand and the high trim for 90. But what they do is they build in an undue amount of complexity and cost to all of the manufacturing process, all of the supply chain process. And I'm picking on something that's very simple and easy to understand. And that is the exterior trim levels of the vehicles. And Tesla has proven that you can first, not change what the vehicle looks like for a long period of time. Now, that has been done by serious OEMs have kept the same style of a vehicle for 7 to 8 years. That's not uncommon. But what they typically do is they typically refresh it, mid-cycle action. They'll change the fascia, the headlights, they update stuff. Tesla's been making the Model 3 and it's essentially unchanged from what it looks like since late 2017, early 2018. We're pushing 2023.
The problem with a lot of these manufacturers is they just simply do not make vehicles that are compelling enough to be sold at a high enough volume without changing much. Tesla just focuses on making the cars incredibly compelling, and that is how Tesla can beat Toyota Camry that is roughly half the price of the Model Y. And this way, Tesla is actually able to focus where it matters and reduce costs even further, which then makes the car even more compelling because now it's even cheaper. And because the volume is so high, Tesla can invest more money into a more expensive Gigapress, which then further reduces the cost for Tesla. In the meantime, a lot of these other automakers, we how to stimulate the demand by redesigning the car, making it look a little bit different, doesn't change any functionality, but makes it look a little bit different. Add all these other trims, which bring so much complexity and reduce profit margins, which then leads into a spiral, downward spiral, increased complexity and increased costs. Corey said that actually he was not impressed with the first Model 3, but here's how that changed.
We were not impressed at all when we first saw the Model 3.
Right.
Particularly because the complexity of the body, and our first Model 3 actually had 3 different types of manufacturing methodologies on the outer door ring: sinusoidal laser welds, spot welds, and Henrobs. So to have 3 different types of manufacturing methodology on the door ring was asinine. And so the things that were easy, Tesla was struggling at.
One of the things I noticed that happened with one of the earlier Model 3s, which does not happen anymore, when I went through a lot of uneven surfaces, slowly, there were a lot of potholes, I would just feel that the car is made out of a lot of pieces that are sort of glued, and you can sort of like almost hear the pieces moving. And maybe the word "hear" is not the right word. Feel maybe would be a little bit more appropriate. It was a weird, unusual feeling that I had. But now you drive any Tesla and it's like, oh, this thing is put together very well.
The things that were hard, Tesla was excelling at. So it's difficult to create that highly integrated EV architecture. The industry around the world, Honda, Ford, GM, Toyota, they have the manufacturing of the bodies and building of the vehicles at high volume. They have that mastered. There's a large group of people all over the world that have mastered building vehicles at volume in high quality. So we initially lampooned the Tesla because the build quality was poor. We got an early VIN number. Now, because when you're talking about manufacturing.
Imagine that. You see a company that solves difficult things, but the easy ones they're not very good at yet. And the keyword very is yet, really. What do you think is going to happen later? Of course, the easy things are easy to solve, so they will be solved. But the hard ones, if you can't solve the hard ones, then you're just stuck. But because you already can, it's going to be not that difficult going forward. That was a big hint to get into Tesla. And those who bought Tesla stock back in 2017, today are quite happy.
They also were building in the NUMMI plant, which is less than ideal. When you're building in a plant that was set up to build the Toyota Matrix and the Pontiac Vibe, I think that's what was built there. You're starting at a disadvantage. The paint shop is not built based on your vehicle. The body shop's not built or laid out based on your vehicle. The lines and the conveyors are set up to build an internal combustion engine vehicle. So if you move past the Fremont factory and go to Giga Texas, which I was in, did you go in Giga Texas?
I did. Yep. Okay, yeah. I was there.
So when you start from a clean slate and you can integrate your battery production and pack production into the plant, you eliminate a huge amount of costs, because in Giga Nevada, they had to build Giga Nevada for a place for them to do the subassembly buildup of, first of all, making the cells and building the packs. But then you have to ship those from Nevada to Fremont. A huge amount of cost and time associated with that. So there's a big advantage. Putting your pack assembly and cell production on site, where you're casting the Giga castings and doing body assembly. That means that you essentially are going mostly raw materials in, vehicle out.
And Tesla is already excelling in the US just with Fremont, but with Austin really kicking in, that is where we are going to see a big difference going forward. When Giga Shanghai was shut down last year, we saw the margins really take a hit for Tesla. So that factory that was built basically from scratch and optimized for Tesla, that makes a big difference. And Austin is a newer version. So that factory is going to be more productive than Giga Shanghai, you could maybe even say. And now let's see why traditional automakers are not vertically integrating, because that is one major Tesla advantage. How come they are just not copying Tesla?
So it changed how the vehicles were designed. Early vehicles were body on frame with like a whole closed front end. But then they realized is if you take that front end of the vehicle off and create it as a module, a front end module, now it's a big, large steel or magnesium module. Then you can put the radiator and the condenser in it and the fans and the fascia and the bumper. Now that can be built out. Then the body shop used to stamp all the parts in the plant and put it together. Well, now they realized that large portions of the vehicle, they could have those subassembly welded together in some lower cost area and shipped in. So now they're not even stamping the whole body. So what happens is, on paper, you start to look like a hero because you've cut costs incredibly. But the one thing that OEMs failed to realize is when you rely on your suppliers now to do these parts, how do they make money? They make money when the vehicle is more complicated and less efficient.
Yeah.
The more complicated it is, the less efficient it is, the more their part costs. So the tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers were not necessarily motivated to serve the customer. Now, this is the thing that I point out all the time to many of our clients, our OEM clients, that when you go to a tier 1 and say, I want thermal system components for my EV, how have they been trained? They've been trained by the old school methodologies of supplying commercial off-the-shelf components at bare minimum prices, made in weird, far-reaching places of the earth. You buy all these off-the-shelf components, you put them under the hood, and now you have to do your engineering work and create all the lines to make them all together. And what you get is a fragmented, inefficient design with low-cost commercial off-the-shelf components, but a higher cost, higher weight, less efficient, poor performing vehicle.
In other words, this is how you get this or this when you were just going to copy this. There's a lot more in that interview. Let me know if you'd like me to make a part 2. In the meantime, this is the Tesla stock buying opportunity explained by Elon Musk. My name is Munro Associates. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.